Today, we'll dive into the world of ancient Tibetan wisdom and talk about 7 secrets that are best kept to yourself to preserve harmony, independence, and personal space. These secrets, like precious pearls, help maintain balance. The truth lies in knowing when to speak and when it's better to stay silent. Stay with us until the end, and you'll discover the sacred knowledge that can bring inner peace and why wise people strongly advise protecting your truths. If you have personal truths or stories we haven't mentioned here, don't hesitate to generously share them in the comments to help make the world a better place. Now, give us a like and let's get started. The first secret is silence about your health. Sometimes loved ones, especially children, become our support and strength. But can excessive care turn into a burden? Is it always necessary to share every detail about our health? Imagine yourself in a quiet monastery perched on a mountaintop. In this secluded place, every sound and shadow are imbued with traces of ancient wisdom. Our protagonist, Mr. Gray, an elderly man, embarks on a journey to Tibet in search of inner peace and answers to the questions troubling him. He meets Master Lin, a wise monk with eyes as deep as lakes, who knows all about life and its invisible boundaries. Mr. Gray senses that Master Lin is the one who can explain why some secrets are better kept to oneself. Mr. Gray decides to open up to Master Lin about his concerns. He admits that doctors recently gave him a diagnosis, and he immediately shared it with his son, hoping for support during this challenging time. At first, his attention comforted me, says Mr. Gray. But over time, I felt his care turning into control. Now he calls me every day, monitors my treatment, and gives advice. I increasingly feel like I'm losing my freedom. Master Lin listens silently, and then, with his characteristic calm clarity, says, "When we share our ailments with loved ones, it feels like we're lightening our own burden. But often, this brings new worries that you may not always notice." How often do we consider that honesty can bring not only relief, but also unforeseen consequences? Can we be certain that our disclosure will lead to understanding rather than anxiety for our loved ones? Master Lin concludes his reflection and looks at Mr. Gray. "You believe your son is supporting you, but his care has become a heavy load for him. True care is not always complete transparency. Sometimes it's the ability to remain silent for their peace of mind." This raises an unexpected question. How often do we unwittingly burden our loved ones by sharing too much about our well-being? Sometimes, silence can bring more tranquility to both us and those we care about. Inspired by Master Lin's wisdom, Mr. Gray realizes that every time he talked about his illness, it only added to his son's worries. From that day forward, he decides to share only what won't cause alarm. He will hold on to this advice like a sacred mantra, granting him strength and inner peace while giving his son the harmony and confidence that his father is okay. The second secret is financial independence. Financial matters often become the subject of candid conversations with loved ones, but does such honesty always strengthen relationships? Or can it, on the contrary, lead to misunderstanding and even hidden tension? Imagine a morning in a Tibetan monastery where silence envelops everything, as if shielding the world from unnecessary words. Inspired by the first piece of advice from Master Lin, Mr. Gray decides to share another worry with him. He's concerned about maintaining his independence so as not to become a burden to his son. Once, feeling proud of my accomplishments, I told my son about my savings so he would know I could take care of myself. But soon, it turned into something else. I began to hear hints more often that my money should be considered our shared future. My son stopped seeing it as my freedom, Mr. Gray confesses. He recalls the evening when his son suddenly asked for help buying a car, saying, "You're not really spending your money anyway, and I really need it now." Those words hit Mr. Gray like a blow. He had hoped his son would understand how important his financial independence was to him, but now his savings had become something his son viewed as an inheritance to claim. With each new conversation, his right to manage his own money was increasingly questioned. Master Lin listens attentively to Mr. Gray, and after a moment of silence, he softly says, "When we reveal our inner world to others, even in the form of savings, we can't always predict their reaction. What begins as pride can turn into expectations of generosity, which may become a burden for us." The sage's words feel like a liberation for Mr. Gray. he realizes that his openness about financial matters had unintentionally disrupted his inner peace. Now, he resolves to no longer discuss his finances with his son, preserving both his independence and his peace of mind. The third secret is silence about the past. Sharing past experiences can bring relief, but can it also cause pain and disappointment? In the tranquil setting of a Tibetan monastery, Mr. Gray reflects on the regrets he's accumulated over the years. One evening, as he listens to the whisper of the wind outside, he decides to confide in Master Lin and share the story of his mistakes. "I wanted my son to know about these mistakes so he wouldn't repeat them," Mr. Gray admits. "I told him everything, hoping he would see it as valuable life lessons, but something went wrong." Mr. Gray painfully recalls his son's reaction to his confessions. The understanding look he had hoped for was replaced by disappointment. "I never thought you could make such mistakes," Mr. Gray quotes, his voice heavy. "Those words became a burden for me. Instead of support, our relationship grew tense, and he no longer looks up to me as a role model." Master Lin listens to Mr. Gray's story and quietly responds, "True wisdom lies not only in recognizing your mistakes, but also in knowing when to keep them to yourself. Sometimes, the past should remain unspoken to preserve the respect we've earned in the eyes of our loved ones. Silence about the past can often be the best way to maintain harmony." How often do we consider that revealing our past may bring not wisdom but unnecessary pain to those closest to us? Is it always important to share everything? Or is true wisdom sometimes found in remaining silent to protect the fragile balance of trust? Mr. Gray realizes that by sharing his regrets, he had only burdened his son with the weight of his mistakes, shattering the image his son once had of him. From that moment on, he decides to keep his past mistakes to himself, preserving his son's trust and respect. The fourth secret is silence about dreams. Dreams and hopes reside deep within our souls, but is it always wise to share them with loved ones? Will they understand our longing for what hasn't come to pass, or will they see it only as weakness and disappointment? Sitting on the edge of a cliff overlooking the valleys of Tibet, Mr. Gray recalls his long-held dream to see the ocean, to immerse himself in the sound of the waves, and to feel the endless majesty of nature. "I shared this dream with my son, hoping for understanding and maybe even support. I thought he'd see how important it was to me," Mr. Gray reflects. But his son's response took him by surprise. "The ocean, Dad? Do you realize how much we're spending right now? It'll be expensive. Maybe you should stop dreaming and focus on what's realistic," his son replied coolly. Those words felt like an icy wind, extinguishing the spark of hope. Mr. Gray had expected excitement and interest, but instead, his dream was dismissed. Master Lin listens in silence. The quiet is filled with understanding until the sage finally speaks. When we share our dreams, we reveal the sanctuary of our soul, but not everyone will see the light within it. Sometimes, others see only an unattainable wish, while for us, it's a symbol of inner freedom. There are moments when it's better to keep our dreams to ourselves so we don't extinguish their flame in our hearts. Is it worth sharing something so personal if it won't be understood or supported? Mr. Gray realizes that the dream snuffed out during that conversation with his son now takes on a new meaning. He decides to keep his wish to see the ocean close to his heart, understanding that dreams are his personal space, his freedom, which doesn't require anyone else's approval. From this moment on, he guards his dream within himself, knowing it's the source of strength that drives him forward. The fifth secret is keeping fears about the future to yourself. We all feel anxious about the unknown from time to time, but is it always wise to share those fears with loved ones? Will they understand us, or will it only make them worry unnecessarily? One peaceful evening at the monastery, Mr. Gray decides to reveal another secret to the wise Master Lin. As he ages, he finds himself thinking more often about the future, what the years will bring, and what might happen if his strength fades one day. One day, unable to cope with this fear, I decided to share it with my son, Mr. Gray begins. He recalls sitting with his son, carefully choosing his words to avoid causing alarm. Gently, he spoke about his concerns. But his son looked at him with a slight smile and said, "Dad, you've always been so strong. I never imagined things like this would bother you. It just doesn't seem like you." Those words struck Mr. Gray deeply. Instead of seeing depth and courage in his honesty, his son saw weakness. Master Lin listens intently and then responds, "Fears about the future are like shadows that pass if we don't feed them. Our fears, like our hopes, belong to us alone. When we share them, we pass that shadow to others, risking the creation of a worry they may not understand. Wisdom may lie in holding those fears within, as a quiet reminder of our vulnerability, if openness only leads to misunderstanding." Mr. Gray reflects and realizes that his honesty brought no relief. It only made him seem more vulnerable in his son's eyes. He decides to keep his worries as part of his personal journey, transforming them into a quiet strength that will help him stay resilient, even when no one else sees it. The sixth secret is non-interference in the lives of loved ones. Parents always want the best for their children, but is it always wise to guide them or share your perspective on their lives? Perhaps true care sometimes means keeping your opinions to yourself. On a bright day, as the sun warms the monastery, Mr. Gray finds Master Lin and decides to discuss something that has been troubling him for a long time. He shares a story about his eldest son, who often makes mistakes while chasing unattainable goals and finds himself in difficult situations. "I wanted so badly to tell him he was going down the wrong path, to warn him so he wouldn't repeat my mistakes. I tried to help, but it seems I only made things worse," Mr. Gray admits. He recalls the evening when he decided to talk to his son. Carefully choosing his words, Mr. Gray said, "I think you should consider your future and choose a more stable path." He hoped for understanding, but his son frowned and replied sharply, "Dad, I'm not 15 anymore for you to tell me how to live. I'm an adult, and I know what I need." Those words felt like a wall closing off his son's heart. Mr. Gray realized his advice had only created more tension between them. Master Lin listens quietly and then says, "When we interfere with another's path, even with the best intentions, we risk disrupting their own growth. True care sometimes means allowing others to learn their lessons, staying close without showing the way, observing but not intervening." How often do we consider that our advice might not help, but instead create resistance? Perhaps it's wiser to let loved ones take their own steps, even if they lead to mistakes. Reflecting on Master Lin's words, Mr. Gray realizes that his desire to shield his son from hardships only deepened the strain between them. From now on, he resolves to observe his son's life with understanding, refraining from interfering in his decisions to preserve peace and respect in their relationship. Seventh secret: keep your independence to yourself. As we age, preserving personal space and independence becomes especially important. But do our loved ones always understand our desire to remain self-reliant? Can excessive care take away our freedom? Inspired by Master Lin's wisdom, Mr. Gray reflects on an experience that still brings him sadness. His daughter, with the best intentions, once suggested he move in with her so she could always be there to help. "Dad, my husband and I are ready to help you. Come live with us. It'll be convenient for everyone," she said. Her words left Mr. Gray feeling a deep sense of loss. He recalls smiling at her, trying to hide his inner turmoil. While he understood her intentions were kind, the thought of leaving his home, his routines, and his freedom felt suffocating. She didn't realize that moving in with her meant losing not just my home, but a part of myself, Mr. Gray confesses. That his home was more than just a place to live. It was a sanctuary, a symbol of independence and stability. After hearing Mr. Gray's story, Master Lin quietly responds, "True care sometimes isn't about being close, but about giving someone the space to remain themselves. Independence is a part of the soul that no one has the right to take away, even out of love. Keep your freedom to preserve respect for yourself and from those around you." Can the desire to help a loved one become a burden for them? Should we share our need for independence with our family if they might not understand? Master Lin's words fill Mr. Gray with clarity and confidence. He realizes that independence is his choice. By staying in his home, he retains his inner strength. Grateful for his daughter's care, he decides to thank her but remain in his home, knowing that true happiness lies in the ability to be himself. Do we often wonder what's better, openness or the ability to stay silent? Each decision, each little secret can either build bridges to loved ones or protect the sanctuary of our inner world. If these stories resonate with you and you'd like to learn more about how wisdom helps maintain harmony in life, share your thoughts in the comments. How do you feel about these secrets? Should we always share everything with loved ones, or is it sometimes better to keep some things to ourselves? Subscribe to our channel to catch more episodes filled with ancient wisdom and secrets of inner peace. Many inspiring stories and valuable tips await. See you in the next video.